Hi, this is I'll Explain. This is another I'll Explore where I will talk a bit about how, at least in the lore, Zeta Gundam came to be. Or specifically, why does it have such a massive style change compared to previous entries? Like we know in the real world, Bandai basically scramble up all the mecha designer they can get their hands on to design a Gundam, a Zeta Gundam, and ended up having Fujita, the young apprentice, sort of mix and matching all the master's work, turning it into an instant classic that we know today. We are also going to look at the G frame as a set as it was originally. I left the static frame off because at this point G frame doesn't turn their static frame into a base. So no point in showing that. But it does come with a bus like Dome and New Gundam. This is a enlarged version of the Zeta we see as a bus. Not sure what this serial number means. They're not years or anything, but yeah. So they did, at least in the computer file, have the shoulder covering details, but all of these turn into regular openings as it become a candy toy. But yeah, head is still movable. So kind of wild time for the G frame. Anyways, this is less relevant. As we have discussed, Zeta Gundam have main reactors on its legs, invert of the original RX-78 design. The armor are a lot more angular, triangular, more just more angles in general. But you know, it still have a lot of streamline curves like on the shield, inside the legs or part of the leg. So yeah, not completely flat like the chest. Like it's not completely flat, hard angles, but it does have a lot more prism, let's say, out from the design. And in the lore, that came from Hakushiki. Hakushiki being a, or was, Delta Gundam, and being modified to be more practical and only have mobile suit, Mo. And while Hakushiki had some changes from the original Delta Gundam design, at least in mobile suit form, it is mostly intact. Do note that these mechanical bits is supposed to be the inner frame, but G-frame choose to just show the front shock absorbers for some reason. I think the general G-frame inner frame is good looking enough and close enough to the Hakushiki's original design that this covering actually makes Hakushiki looks less accurate, but you know, it's not his show. But yeah, basically getting out from Hakushiki are the shoulder design, the arms. Let's take off the beam rifles. Zeta Gundam got the arms from Hakushiki. There are still some differences because Hakushiki is now a fixed frame mobile suit mode, only mobile suit. But yeah, still got pulse transmission conduits in the middle, and then on to a shoulder pad that is slightly more complex than the Gundam's design, mostly for the extra thruster. But yeah, front skirts, kind of. Zeta Gundam have longer front skirts, just like Hakushiki had longer front skirts, because they need that as heat shielding. Hakushiki just keep them as they were for protection. Side skirts, very different. Back skirts, the shape is similar, but Hakushiki obviously does not have as much thrusters, or not at all, in this G frame. And yeah, no beam saber holders for Zeta Gundam. But another thing Zeta Gundam got from Hakushiki are the wing binders. Now the Hakushiki's wing binders do have a lot of wingspan, which Zeta should have its wing extended out. Depending on which version you get, you sometimes got a small little wing and sometimes a wide wing. That is before we talk about the wave shooter variant. Either way, Zeta Gundam had some wings because they came from Hakushiki. Now Hakushiki's main backpack is a lot more regular looking, as opposed to Zeta, which just have 3 wing binders. The middle sort of work as the main backpack, but not really. And just not so similar, to be honest. Zeta's chest is the whole. Another thing I didn't mention when I go to do the explanation for Zeta is how I left Kamille Bidan out of the equation. I sort of talk about that when I talk about Blue Destiny. I try to keep the pilots from the explanation as much as possible, unless it is a case with New Gundam where Amuro is the essential component. Zeta Gundam isn't designed around Kamille, but it is only possible with Kamille stealing Gundam Mark II. He did, like, Anaheim was researching for Zeta Gundam, that's why you have Delta Gundam. And while Delta Gundam isn't working, there is a prototype Zeta Gundam in the works. But like Delta, they can't get it off the ground because Anaheim couldn't figure out a good transformation system. So what Kamille comes in and did, it's basically using the prototype Zeta's design, added his own flair, namely the flying armor, which forms the 2 wings at the back. The tail stabilizer is sort of in prototype Zeta, but not really. So Kamille mainly create the flying armor style wings and a shield, and he proceeded to move the reactor down to the legs for maximum thrust. Now if you go back to the Zeta Gundam series remaster, you may notice Kamille have been listening to the underground radio. So not often mentioned in the logbooks, but it is possible that Kamille get onto the Zeta project a lot earlier than him being recruited by Orc when he steal the Gundam Mark IIs. But that's unconfirmed, just sort of between the lines. Either way, Kamille put the movable frame and the Zeta concept and the flying armor wave rider form together to make Zeta possible. And for the G frame, they didn't do a wave rider, which is really weird. Let me get a frame. This is just a Xeon frame, but essentially what Zeta do in transformation is this. So fold the arms in, turn the hip around, and then bring the knees in. This is essentially what Zeta's frame is doing when it get into wave rider mode. Now, obviously, the chest supposed to live up, but you can sort of see that. But you know, with G frame where it is just armor pieces on the frame, I think it is possible for them to make a alternative frame, another fixed frame for the wave rider mode, or just, I mean, okay, fine, making a new frame for transformable mode suit, especially Zeta, might be a bit far of a stretch, but a bit of, you know, parts forming, like most HG or even SD, should be possible with the G frame. So if we ever do a Alexcursus with Zeta, yeah, that would be a major markdown. So we got the arms, the head too. The slim head, the original Delta design called for a slim head so that it is easier to tuck inside the chest. So that's why it is also present on Zeta. That's also real world law as well. Fujita pretty much took the original Hakushiki design but make it more Gundam-like, because the original design does not have a V antenna like Hakushiki. So we still have some component missing, haven't we? But if we look at Rick dice, by the way, that's what Hakushiki is based on. I mean, Hakushiki was literally our MS100, while the Rick dice was our MS099. So this is the next model. It's just so happened that the and you know, Delta Gamma Gundam into Delta Gundam. So yeah, for all intents and purposes, Hakushiki is supposed to be, or Delta Gundam supposed to be a successor of Gamma Gundam Rick dice, but for many reasons it turns out not to be. That's why you can see both have like this chest shape on the upper chest, but Hakushiki got a chest cockpit instead of, you know, nothing for Rick dice, because the cockpit is in the head. The front skirts, most series like HGUC or MG would have a similar front skirt for both Hakushiki and Rick dice. You can sort of see the side skirt is similar, of having space for a thruster. Hakushiki's one is a bit more complex compared to the Rick dice, but yeah, so a lot of Hakushiki comes from Rick dice, but like the two wing binders too. Like Rick dice has no wings on its wing binders, where Hakushiki got literal wings for, you know, atmospheric flight, pretty much. So yeah, what you see missing between the transition from Hakushiki to Zeta, you can find on Rick dice, like thrusters on the back skirts, and they're supposed to be thrusters here. Thrusters go all the way down to the lower leg. I would say for the chest, if you ignore the air ducts and the cockpit, Zeta looks remarkably like Rick dice, or Delta. And yeah, obviously the pulse transmission. Now that we got these two out, they got the same clay bazooka, and Hakushiki's beam rifle is basically a enlarged version of Rekdai's beam gun. That's what I say when they get new weapons for Rekdais. They do give this beam gun to Rekdais, or some Rekdais. There are also other alternative beam guns that Orc would use later on. But yeah. So, here you go. New generation of Gundams. Gamma, Delta, and Zeta. Obviously, Hakushiki got a revisit later on as Bandai expand on the Zeta MSV, and we got a proper Delta Gundam design that uses some Delta Plus design, which I think is fine. And there's no reason to have a, early prototype. Maybe they will. Maybe they will add a prototype Delta Gundam that is basically Hakushiki but can transform into MMO. But for now, we only have Delta Gundam that is sort of using feedbacks from Delta Plus, which got its data from Zeta Plus, the mass production type of Zeta, so a big circle to make Delta work again. And even so, in the lore, it is supposed to be a simulation model only used in simulations because they couldn't find the polymer used for Hakushiki's gold paints, even though they have arguably better anti-beam coating at the time. But that's what they wrote. And for Gamma Gundam, there is a build Gamma Gundam where they gave Rekdai's twin eyes, but keeping most of the head dressing and V-shape antenna, of course. But we haven't got a proper Gamma Gundam yet. Sometimes the prototype, the more rounded version, because you still got a lot of hash straight lines on the Rekdais, there's a version with a bit more round armor designs called a prototype Rekdais that has a mono eye, a actual mono eye on tracks. Sometimes publisher will call that Gamma Gundam, but that's unconfirmed. So we'll see if we eventually get a version of proper Gamma Gundam, and we'll see if there is going to be a prototype Delta Gundam, which would be very much Hakushiki but transformable. Thanks for watching. See you next time.